Hey students, in this video we're going to go through the chapter, sorry about the bell, 3 and 4 review for the SBA. Make sure you follow along on your own paper. Number 1, the tape diagram models the ratio of red beads to green beads in a bracelet. The bracelet uses 12 red beads. How many green beads are in the bracelet? So I know the amount of red beads in total was 12. Because they split that into 3 equal sections, 12 divided by 3, that means each section has 4 beads in it. These sections are the same size and have the same amount of beads in them, so 4 in each. Because there's 2 of them, that means 8 green beads in total. Number 2, which number is equivalent to 2.34 times 1.08 times 5.6? Now I know that some of you might want to start multiplying these, but this would be a lot of multiplication. The first thing I'm going to focus on is the decimals. When we multiply numbers that have decimals, we ignore the decimal places at first. And then at the end, we count the total number of decimal places in each of the factors, and that's how many are going to be in the product. So that's what I'm going to focus on first, because that will help me eliminate some of these, because they all have different numbers of decimal places. There are 2 in the first factor, 2 in the second factor, and 1 in the third. Total, that should be 5 decimal places. The only answer that has 5 decimal places is option B. This one has 6, this has 4, and that only has 2. So automatically it must be option B. We didn't even need to multiply them to figure it out. Number 3, the school store sells four pencils for 50 cents. At this rate, what is the cost in dollars of 10 pencils? I'm going to use a ratio table to figure this out. I'm going to do pencils and then money. So I know right now I can get 4 for 50 cents. I want to know how much for 10. It's kind of hard to go straight from 4 to 10. So first I'm going to divide it by 2 to make it a 2. I'll do the same to the bottom. 50 cents divided by 2 would be 25 cents. And then to go from 2 to 10, I multiply by 5. 25 cents times 5, so 25, 50, 75, $1, and then another one, so $1.25. So it would cost $1.25 for those 10 pencils. Number 4, a factor tree for 14,700 is shown. Which factor of 14,700 is not a perfect square? So remember, a perfect square is a number we get when we multiply something by itself. So for example, 25, we can do 5 times 5 to get that. That means that is a perfect square, so I would not want to choose that. 49 looks like we can do 7 times 7 to get that, so that's a perfect square as well. Now these numbers, it's a little bit more difficult to figure out because we don't necessarily see like this one, 588. It doesn't have a number times itself, and neither does 196. However, if you look at the tree from 196 down, you'll notice that ultimately 2 times 2 times 7 times 7 turned into 196. If we group up a 2 and a 7, a 2 and a 7, that would mean 14 times 14 can get us all the way back to 196. Therefore, that is a perfect square. The only one that isn't is 588. Number 5, which of the following is a ratio of frogs to snakes? So I want to count the frogs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I can get rid of A and D because the first number should be 8 since there's 8 frogs. And count the snakes. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's going to be option C, 8 to 4. 8 frogs, 4 snakes. Number 6, which is the correct order of operations when evaluating 5 plus 4 times 2 to the third power? Well, remember our order of operations is GEMDAS. G stands for grouping, which there isn't any of. E would be for exponents, and I do have that. So that's what I would want to do first. So evaluating 2 to the third power. So the first thing should be M. So I know it's going to be C or D. After I do that, 2 to the third power, that means 2 times 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4. Times 2 again is 8. So it would look like this. 5 plus 4 times 8. Next, multiplication or division. So I would want to multiply 4 and 8. So P should be the next one. So I already know it's going to be D because that's the only one that has the first 2 steps correct. And then if we did that, let's say we finished this out, 4 times 8 is 32. Then we would add 5 and 32. So L is that last step. Moving on to the back page, which fraction is not equivalent to 25%? Now remember, 25% or any percent means that number out of 100. So 25% means 25 out of 100. So right away, option I is thrown out because that is equal to 25%. Now, none of the other ones show 25 over 100, so I'm going to try and turn the bottom numbers into 100 and see what I get. 20 times 5 that gives me 100. If I do the same to the numerator, 5 times 5 is 25. 20 times 5 is 100. So option H would also be 25%. Option F, 4 times 25 makes 100. Do the same to the numerator. 1 times 25 is 25. 4 times 25 is 100. So not F. It's going to have to be G. The reason this is not 25% is because we would multiply 5 by 20 to make 100. When we do the same to the top, we would get 40. So this would be 40%, not 25%. Number 8, what is the missing value in the ratio table? So in a ratio table, we're either multiplying or dividing to go from one ratio to the next. 2 times 4 makes 8. So 7 times 4 makes 28. Number 9, which pair of numbers does not have a least common multiple less than 100? So I'm going to find which ones do have a least common multiple less than 100 and then get rid of those, and whatever's left is my answer. I know right off the bat it's not A, because if I count by 10s, 10, 20, 30, and then 15s, 15, 30, they have an LCM of 30. That is less than 100, so it's not the one I want to choose. Let's try 12 and 16. 12, 24, 36, 48, 16, 32, 48. They also have an LCM of less than 100. Theirs is 48. Now trying 18 and 24. 18, 36, 54, 72, 24, 48, 72. Theirs is 72, also less than 100. That means it's going to have to be C. So I don't even need to find their LCM. All the other ones have one less than 100, so it's got to be the last one, C. Number 10, you are comparing the costs of buying bottles of water at the supermarket. Which of the following has the least cost per liter? So this is 6 1-liter bottles for $1.80. So what I'm going to do is find their unit rate. Take the amount of money and divide it by the amount of liters. When we do that, we would get 30 cents. But notice the next one. It says 1 2-liter bottle. That means when I divide, I don't want to divide it by 1 bottle. I want to divide the money by 2 liters, because that's how many liters you're getting for this amount of money. 0.65 divided by 2 is 0.325. H, 8 half-liter bottles. So 2 halves make a whole. So if I have 8 halves, that means it's 4 whole liters. So the money, 150 divided by the liters, 4. That's 0.375 per liter. And finally, I, 12 half liters, so 6 full liters. To take the money, divide it by 6 liters, I get 0.33, so 33 cents. So option F, 6 1-liter bottles for $1.80 is the best deal. Number 11, what is 75% of 36? I'm going to set up a ratio table, part versus whole for this. I always start with the percent. 75% means 75 out of 100. But this is not out of 100. This is out of 36. That word of means it is the whole. It's what it's out of. It should go on the bottom. The reason I left an empty column in the middle is because it's challenging to go straight from 100 to 36. So first, I'm going to divide 75 and 100 by something that fits evenly into both of them. The thing that comes to mind for me is 25. 75 divided by 25 is 3. 100 divided by 25 is 4. And then to go from 4 to 36, I would need to multiply by 9. When I do the same to the top, 3 times 9 is 27. So 27 is 75% of 36. Number 12, multiplying fractions. So I'm going to cross cancel first. Can't cross cancel 5 and 9. Nothing fits evenly into both of them besides 1. But for 4 and 12, I could divide both by 4. 12 divided by 4 is 3. 4 divided by 4 is 1. Multiplying across the numerators, 5 times 1 is 5, and across the denominators, 3 times 9 is 27. So 5 27ths, option A. Number 13, which list of numbers is in order from least to greatest? So here we have fractions, decimals, and percents. I'm going to go ahead and rewrite each of these as a percent if it isn't already, and it'll be easier to order them. So 70%, that's already written as a percent. Let's go with 0.8. To turn a decimal into a percent, we have to move the decimal 2 places to the right, meaning I'm going to have to add a 0 in there. So it's going to be 80%. And then I'll do that same thing with the other decimal, 0.09. Move that decimal 2 places to the right, becomes 9%. And then for 5/8, a percent out of 100, and 8 doesn't get straight to 100 by multiplying by a whole number. So I'm just going to get as close as I can, and it'll be hopefully a decent enough estimate to put them in order. 5 times 12 is 96, so that's pretty close to 100. 5 times 12 is 60. So this is not exactly 60%, but it's pretty close, and that should be a good enough estimate to put these in order. So my options are 80%, 9%, approximately 60%, and 70%. 9% should definitely be the least, so it has to be H or I. Next, we would have about 60%, so 5/8. Then it should be 70%, so that means option I is correct, because then 0.88, 80% needs to be the greatest. Number 14, which number is equivalent to 1.32 divided by 0.006? I read that 6 as a 0 for a second. So I'm going to set up my long division problem. The first number goes in the house. The second number goes outside the house. Whenever our divisor is a decimal, we want to slide that decimal to the right and make it into a whole number. So I'm going to have to move it 3 times, which means I need to move the decimal in the dividend 3 times as well. So it's going to have to get a 0 at the end of it. So this becomes 1,320 divided by 6. And I'm actually going to write that off to the side so I have a little more room below to do the actual division. 6 doesn't fit into 1, but it fits into 13 2 times. 2 times 6 is 12. When I subtract, I get 1. Bring down the 2. 6 fits into 12 2 times. 2 times 6 is 12. I subtract and I get 0. Now next I would bring down a 0 and I'm done, but I do have the empty spot up top, so don't forget to put a 0 there because it should be 220, not 22. If there's that empty spot up top, we do need to fill it in with a 0. And finally, which ratio is equivalent to 4 to 14? So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go ahead and divide this 4 by 2. It would be 2. Do the same thing to this one. I get 7. Right away, I know option F doesn't work because if these were equivalent, it should have been 2 to 7, and it's not. Now that this is 2, I could turn it into 18. I could turn it into 10. I could turn it into 8. I'm going to start by choosing the 18. So 2 times, let me do that off to the side. 2 times 9 would be 18. But 7 times 9, that's 63, not 28. So that's not going to work. Let's try G. So let's turn 2 to 7. Let's multiply 2 by 5 to make it 10. When I do 7 times 5, I get 35. Perfect. That means G was the correct option. I can get from 4 to 14 to this ratio by multiplying or dividing each value by the same number.